The second thing is about. Second thing is about. The second thing was like your mindset and the tracks on the train, how those are like the same thing in my mind. And thirdly, how the fuel that you have gotten up to that point in your journey is absolutely crucial. As always, if the podcast is helpful for you, building your self care, understanding of yourself, relationship with yourself, definitely hit that follow button. We're going to be having a lot more interviews and analogies and episodes like that coming very soon. Going to try to get more interviews, but today it just didn't happen. So we're doing this instead, and I absolutely love doing these. So I just take it as opportunity to learn. I did a little bit of research on trains before we recorded this, hopefully so it could be more valuable for you guys. With that all said, we'll just jump right into it. As I was trying to come up with as I was trying to like come up with how this analogy could make sense and how it would be valuable and something that could be sticky for you that could help you, I thought about a conductor and how a conductor needs to keep his eyes on the road, how he needs to have that vision, eyes on the tracks. He has to be able to have a pretty good idea of what's in front of him. And I thought this was pretty good, and you could relate it to our brains. Our brains are always coming up with how we see things, like understanding perception of our current situations, and is planning ahead, whether you know it or not, for what is coming up next. So when you get adequate sleep, when you eat good brain food, when you exercise, you're doing your brain a big favor. And for a lot of us, it can be our biggest asset to really help us to grow and become a better version of ourselves. And I think it's really important that when you are just having those struggles, that you're able to like keep your brain on track and just be aware like there are other things. Just take control of what you do have control over, because like even a conductor doesn't have control over every single part of the train, but he does have control over the overall direction that the train is going and has some control of that, but he doesn't have control of everything. And so with your brain, you need to make sure that you are prioritizing what you can prioritize, what you can make the most of. And when you do that, you're able to have a much healthier conductor who is much happier, who is much more able to tackle whatever challenge you put in his way. If we are able to look at the little house on the prairie, the little train that was so determined to not quit, not the Little House on the Prairie. That's a good series, though. I remember watching that as a kid. It was a good time. But with the little train that could, I imagine there was also a very strong conductor in there that was not going to quit. And that's what I think is, that's one thing I think is super fascinating is like with your body, there's this heart, there's this brain, there's all these things that are working together so you can succeed, so you can breathe, so you can be here on this earth with this moment. And I think that's pretty cool. So just the little tip with this is to keep in mind like the bigger picture and where you want to be. Take some time to maybe visualize that, because whenever a train leaves, it has a pretty good idea of where it's headed. And when you do that, it helps you to not get distracted. The second thing I wanted to talk about is actually really fascinating too, is this thought of how your mindset creates the tracks that you go on. So there's a couple things I wanted to dive into with this. One is how a lot of the obstacles and things are more or less in your mind. And so if you are imagining yourself as not being good at something, or that something is not going to go well, you could imagine that track as having those spikes or that lava or whatever you want it to be, a snake. There's something that is in the way, and a lot of that is imagined. Obviously, a lot of it isn't, but there's a decent amount of it that is either A, completely imagined, or B, it's been embellished, meaning that it's something that is small that we have now made bigger to the point that is now much too big to not notice, kind of making a giant mountain out of an anthill is the thought here. And I think another thing with this mindset piece and putting down track is you have to be okay with not knowing exactly how things are going to go, because sometimes you'll have a plan and you'll have to make little detours here and there, and that's completely fine. as you recognize that, detours and stuff are kind of part of the journey, then it helps you to take those different routes that may lead somewhere beautiful, that even if it wasn't your intended route, you can still reach your destination even if you're taking a slightly different route. I know mostly with trains, they have a very predetermined route that they go over hundreds of times a year. But with this example, it's consider your daily life. You start the day out, you go to class, there's different wavelengths and stuff you're on. Maybe you're seeing fellow trains, however you want to think about this. And let's say the day just kind of takes a downhill spiral a little bit. Well, there are things that you can see that you wouldn't see if you were on a different path. Like even just today with my day, I went to my first tutoring appointment for retaking my accounting class. And so I was on campus at this time. I usually am not on campus. And so I ended up running into a couple friends and this other person that I hadn't met before. And it was super cool. And so when you take different routes, you can still get to the same destination. You just need to keep that destination in mind, kind of going back to the conductor thing. And just know that as long as you keep putting on track and be kind to yourself as much as you can, it'll help those tracks be smooth instead of spiky. Because if you're trying to go down a spiky track or a track that doesn't have electricity on it to keep it going, it depends what kind of train we're driving. If we're in a steam locomotive, then you need steam, you need like oil or whatever. That stuff you shovel in, you need that to keep it going, that coal, that's the word. And if it's electricity, you're mostly getting most of your energy from the track. And I guess you could think of it honestly as like an introvert extrovert equation. Like the introverts are the people that have to put the fuel in and they have to fuel up when they get back or along the way. And then there's the extroverts that are more or less powered by the electricity on the track that they're on. Kind of an interesting thought. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm a little bit of an ambivert, which is interesting. But anyway, I thought this concept of mindset was really interesting. And the thought with this is just to consider, where are you heading with your mindset? Are you making it more difficult than you need it to be? Are you making this hill super big and super not just beneficial for you? I don't know. How are you choosing to think about this current struggle? And are you giving yourself a lot of grace along the way? Or are you just kind of making it more difficult than it needs to be? That's the thought there. Finally, the last thought was pretty straightforward. It's just about having enough fuel to keep going. Let's go back to the little engine and that could, or you on your difficult day of school. If you're going up this hill, then your resources are being exhausted very fast, which means that you need to have a lot of good stuff in there to keep you going. If you are running on McDonald's, or dare I say only Chick-fil-A, you are going to probably peter out at some point, especially if you've gotten enough sleep. And so it's very important that you have enough fuel. And I love those different restaurants. Some things at Chick-fil-A I like more than others. Some things at McDonald's I like more than others. But overall, you need to be mindful of the fuel you are giving yourself that's helping you get forward. So the thought here is that if you are giving yourself a lot of great fuel, it'll help you continue to grow. And a quick little example of this was me making this episode. I spent like 10 or 15 minutes diving super deep into trains, so this episode could be a little bit more useful for you and not just going off of my base knowledge, trying to build up from that. And so I was focusing on ideas, and there's like this concept of the value of different kinds of thought, and ideas is like at the tippy tip top. Like there's people and places, and then there's something else. But the big idea here is that ideas are pretty powerful. They can change how you see people. They can change how you see the rest of your life. And so there's a lot of like honestly spiritual ideas and concepts and truths and stuff that really influence how I interact with people and how I try to think about myself and what I'm doing. And all of this is fuel that is giving you perspective and giving you hope and giving you energy to be able to keep going. And so it's very important that you realize what you're putting into your system, because there'll be some days you'll leave for class, work, etc., and you won't really have a bunch of time to fuel up. And so you'll be asked to use whatever you have in your store. And the cool thing with this analogy that doesn't really apply to the analogy is that there's people that can help you out and give you more fuel and that can give you more perspective and that can build you up. And I think that's absolutely crucial. But just keeping in mind, does the fuel that I'm putting into my train, will it give me enough energy to get where I want to go this day, this week? Doing those little things is absolutely crucial, and being a little more aware of yourself. Lately, I've been taking a sandwich more to work at Stu Kent for my internship because I realize I get kind of hungry there, and they have food and stuff, but I eat a lot. Like, I just got back from Red Robin with my roommates and ate a bunch of fries and a giant burger. I'm still hungry. But, it's just being aware of yourself. I think that's such a big part of it. If you know that you are someone that is carrying this giant load and you need a bunch of fuel and you're not able to let go of some of that stuff, then you need to fuel up. You need to be aware of that. On the other hand, if you're somebody that is just kind of on the smaller side and is taking a smaller load, then you need to be aware of that too. And so you just need to carry whatever you need to carry, and you just need to get it up that hill, and it can be really difficult. But just remember, there's a lot of people that are here to help you out. I mean, I made that Discord server last week. There's only a couple people in it still, but it's fun. We're helping each other out. For those who are going down the hill or those going up the hill, I'm trying to provide a place where those people can share their ideas and stuff, and to help us all grow and become better. Because I definitely believe that we all become better as we share our ideas. Going back to the ideas thing, that stuff is such good fuel that can run for so long, in my opinion, and it really can be so good. So definitely check out the Discord server if you have Discord. We'd love to have you in the Discord server. And other than that, I really hope that but yeah, just the fuel that you put in, that you let into your system is absolutely crucial, because if you let garbage in, you are going to get garbage out, and it is probably not going to be pretty when you need to have a miracle or you need to have a big day. It's hard for that to really go through if you haven't prepared, if you haven't gotten that fuel in the tank or in the whatever beforehand. So the real thought with this, just be very mindful of the fuel you're putting in, and just try to more thoughtfully put in what you need for the day, and keep in mind what kind of fuel you need, and put in that much. And keep in touch keep in mind how much fuel keep in mind how much fuel you'll need for that journey, and plan ahead. And keep some snacks along the way, because you can do that. Nobody said you can't do that. All right. So I think that concludes it. I really enjoyed jumping into this analogy. We even got some thoughts along the way. It was a lot of fun. We're definitely gonna get some more interviews in the diving board, I guess. We're gonna have more interviews jump off into the pool of the podcast, so that will be a lot of fun. As always, if the podcast was helpful for you, gave you some perspective, or helped you out, definitely share it with a friend. Definitely would love to hear how it is helping you. Hit me up at dallin@yaletoday.com. My business email, would love to hear from you there too. But no worries if you're not able to. But just know you're not alone, and know that your journey is worth continuing. With that all said, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to yield today, and it'll be a better tomorrow. As you keep in mind the conductor role that you play as you try to direct your life, as you put down the tracks that will build, and the mindset that will help you build your destination, or build the road to your destination. And as you continue to refuel and to fuel ahead of time, I guarantee you will make it over this hill, and you will learn a lot from it and become a much better version of yourself. Okay, well,